Hey guys, welcome to the Smart Venture Podcast. In each episode, we're going to have conversations with some of the top investors, superstar founders, as well as well-known tech company executives in Silicon Valley. We'll have a coffee chat with them to learn their way of thinking and actionable tips on how they build or invest in a successful company. Before we start our show today, I want to make sure the listener, aka you, understand that everything a person say on the podcast only reflects hers or his own opinion, not the show or the company they work at. Our guest today is the CEO of Skillshare, where he leads a community-driven platform for online learning and professional development. Prior to that, he was a CEO of Visually, where he turned around the company and led to a successful acquisition. Before that, he was the VP of Enterprise Services of Upwork. His name is Matt Cooper. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You had a quite interesting journey. You grew up in Texas, you ran student council, you started a garbage rack business, although I'm not sure what that is. You started a business with your uncle. You started a consulting firm with some guy you found on Craigslist. Is that correct?
It is. Yeah, it's a sign of how bad it gets when you're an unemployed telecom investment banker in San Francisco in 2002. So yeah, I did meet someone via Craigslist and start a business with them.
That's quite an interesting experience. What was a Craigslist message like back then? How did you guys find each other?
Literally I had been in banking for 4 years. My then girlfriend, now wife, she was graduating business school. So it was either go to California with her job or go to New York with my job. I was done with banking. I just couldn't do it any longer. So I left assuming, I'd get out to San Francisco, I'll get a nice private equity job, everything will be great. That summer, I think every bank in California laid off half their investment bankers. So I showed up, a day late, $1 short, and I was in telecom. Everything out there was in software and tech. And so I'd been unemployed for like 9 months, and the stench of desperation was all over me, and I was going to every meetup and networking event, whatever I could, just to try to meet people and swerve into something. And so there's this guy, I saw an ad on Craigslist of like, he was doing like a kind of a seminar on, startups and businesses. And I was like, what the hell, I'll go. And I met him there, and he and his partner at the time were trying to start this incubator, accelerator consulting business. His partner was a banker, and his partner had decided, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go back to banking. So he was now missing a partner. So the original name of the firm was Owens Messina. Owens was the guy I ended up working with. Messina is the guy who left. I wasn't quite sure how this was going to go, so I was perfectly fine with Messina's name staying on the business, even though he wasn't involved, because I wasn't quite sure I wanted it to be Owens Cooper yet. So I just started working with him, and we raised a small fund, and we would help startups kind of get up and running.
Wow,
and,
that's quite successful.
Craigslist for a Craigslist meeting, it was pretty damn good. But we did that for about 1.5 years, and then I ended up joining one of our clients full time, kind of as the number two. So that was my first true startup experience. Was that startup that was a client of this consulting firm that I was building.
Yeah. Wow. That's so successful.
Crazy way to get there. Yeah.
I feel like you successfully pivot your life from the banking life to the startup world, or something that happening when you were younger kind of taught you and then shaped you into who you are today.
Yeah. I feel like I need to lay down on the leather couch to answer that question. But I think I was thinking about this a bit. I mean, my childhood, I grew up in suburban Texas, Plano, Texas, north of Dallas, sort of very big cookie cutter, McMansion type of suburb. I think it was just a up and coming, safe, stable place to grow up. I've had the same best friends since kindergarten. Because of that, I walked in their houses without knocking. Their parents spanked me when I needed it. I had 3 sets of parents. I had my family, I had my brother and my sister, and I had 2 more brothers who were my best friends since kindergarten. So I think I had a lot of stability and consistency around me at all times. And so, like when I failed at things, it was fine. Like I had something solid to fall back on. And, you mentioned sort of student council and some of the prep work. And, then fifth grade, I ran for student council against my best friend and I lost.
Oh my
And
God.
then in sixth grade, I ran against my other best friend and lost.
What?
Seventh grade, I ran against that same best friend again and lost again.
Oh my God, just
And
unfriend
then
them.
and these are my best friends. Like, so this was
That's great.
fairly awkward for a couple of days, but then it was like, yeah, whatever, I lost, let's move on. Right. I finally won in eighth grade and then, but it was okay. Like, and, like I was on the basketball team, I was fourth string B team. I just wasn't a good basketball player. And the coach said, look, we got 4 slots. We got 4 kids and 2 slots left. You all suck equally. So you're welcome to show up and practice every week, but only 2 of you get to dress for the game. So every week I had to try out just to dress to sit on the bench, but it was like, whatever. Like I get to be on the team. So, I think a lot of those things, I think I got comfortable trying and failing early on. And, like I think, when I think about what it takes for most people to find success, it's some combination of you work really hard, you make some really good decisions, and then you get really, really lucky. And, I think I've definitely had lots of luck and, I think having good friends, good family, stable environment, lots of opportunity. I've had a lot of privilege and a lot of opportunity, and thankfully I've had some good breaks that allowed me to end up where I am. But it's not lost on me that it took a lot of luck to end up where I am.
Yeah, well, I think that's such a humbling experience. It also shows your collaborativeness. Yeah, if I keep running precedent with the same group of people, I'm just like, I'm done. But
and probably the bigger, maybe the more, the most patient person was my friend. He's like, why does this jerk keep running against me? Like, he's already lost twice, why not cut it out? But, I think it was, again, having that friend group was, a big part of my childhood.
yeah, that also speak about your ability to attract other smart people. Later on in your career, you've worked at JP Morgan. Your boss back then sounded really helpful. He gave you exposure to the clients. When you were working at Upwork, the CEO was a great leader. He was able to lead a self-functioning team that made up by super performers. That experience showed you how a good leader should be leading. How does having those role models influence your career decisions? Who is on your personal board of advisors?
Yeah. I mean, I think, my wife is definitely number one. I mean, if I blow it, it hurts her more than anybody. So, as we have made different career decisions, she's obviously been a big part of it. And, she left her career when we started having kids, but like having a wife who is a Cornell undergrad, Kellogg MBA, former consultant, former investment banker, was doing international strategy for HP. Having her give me kicks in the ribs when I need it, it's pretty good to have that background lying around. And another just, talk about luck. My dad he was a longtime sales and account manager, and now he does exec coaching. So as I've gone through my career and I've run into, different rough spots, like having your dad be someone who both knows you really well and knows how to coach executives, like that's pretty damn lucky to have around. So, there are a lot of long drives home when, I'd had a tough day or I was trying to figure out what to do next, and being able to call him and talk through it was really valuable. But, I think now that I'm further along in my career, you start to accumulate and build a network over time of friends, colleagues, investors, board members that you can tap into when you need it. And, now pretty much any problem I run into, there's somebody I know that I can go get a good independent viewpoint from. And I'm pretty lucky to have a really amazing, stable people around who will pick up the phone when I call.
What would be one piece of advice that your dad gave you that helped you in your career that you think that's like super critical?
Oh, man. I mean, I think and this is something he does very well, is just slowing it down, and I mean, I
Wow.
think all of us, like, you get into, it's like, I got to make a call. It's like, it feels urgent because it's important, but there are a lot of really important things that actually aren't urgent. It can wait 24 hours. It can wait 48, 36, 72. Like, you don't have to react and respond and move right then. And that is not my natural state. And he raised me. He knows that better than anyone. So I think, he is good at, and he focuses on, a coaching style of management as sort of his expertise. And so I think I can feel him doing that to me. Like, I know when he's in dad mode, and I know when he's in executive coach mode. So I think it's that coaching management style is a lot about asking the right questions to get the person to the decision that they're most comfortable with and they're going to execute on well, as opposed to giving them advice. Right. And so I can tell when he starts asking me questions that he's trying to slow me down and get me to think and get out of fight or flight response. And I think that's that's an instinct that's I struggle with, because I want to go, and I want to make the move and make the decision and make the call. And sometimes just, it's the write the email, but don't send it type of approach. And I think that's, I think particularly for me early in my career, I would have saved a lot of scar tissue had I written the email and not sent it, as opposed to trying to react right then.
Yeah, that's such a great advice. I have the urge to instantly respond to everything all the time. If I wait a little bit, I can definitely make more mature decisions. You have a pretty successful career. You're the CEO of a company. You turned around a company before. You've worked at startup turned mature company. What would you say is one skill that you're constantly trying to get better at? It could be technical skill like financial modeling, or soft skill like communications or sales.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's a couple threads. I mean, one, communications in general, is just, when I think about all of the challenges companies go through and how they evolve over time, and, as you think about the different phases of growth, so many growth pains come from mediocre communication. And that could be from the CEO, it could be from the company as a whole, it could be up and down, sideways. Like, just, as you pile more people into a business, it gets harder and harder to drive alignment. And, that alignment and focus has a huge impact on the company's performance over time. So how I communicate, when I communicate, the tone with which I communicate, like, all of those things are super important. And, and I think I tend to over-index on operational, pragmatic, executional, practical. And as it's, most people's weaknesses are their strengths overplayed. As a result, I tend to gloss over the inspirational, the visionary. I'm heavy on perspiration and light on inspiration, right? And I think about when I communicate with the team, and how do I find ways to reinforce our mission and talk about the inspirational stories? I mean, Skillshare, we're lucky in that we've got a very obvious and clear social impact. Like, everybody in our company wakes up feeling really, really good about what we do. That is not something you find every day. That's not my natural state in terms of how I communicate and what I communicate. So that's something that I've got to find other ways to communicate that vision and that inspiration, when it's not necessarily my comfort zone.
I feel like Skillshare definitely has a great mission. One thing I find really interesting is the course quality had a huge jump from the first time I saw it. A long time ago, I remember I watched a YouTube review of Skillshare. Someone mentioned don't sign up because the content will be exactly like YouTube. I feel like you guys did a lot of quality control, such as makeup tutorial can't go on Skillshare, no promotional stuff like selling merch. Creators can't parrot someone else's content from YouTube. It became a way more structured business. When you came to the company, what were they doing? How did you quickly figure out the company's strength and emphasize on that strength?
Yeah, and so I think there's sort of two components to that. I mean, one is just, how do marketplaces and two-sided models evolve over time? And I think this is now my third marketplace business. There's a common misconception that having an open marketplace means no rules,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll just let the marketplace sort itself out. And that is not how it works. Like any successful marketplace, eBay has very defined rules. Amazon has very defined rules. Like there is structure. I mean, the NASDAQ, the New York Stock Exchange, like they don't function if there aren't rules that keep quality, consistency, transparency, visibility high. And so I think when I joined Skillshare, we were making that same mistake that a lot of startups make of like, hey, we're just going to throw it wide open so that we get the volume, and then we'll let the cream rise to the top. Mm-hmm. And the problem with that, and I saw the exact same thing at Odesk in the early days, Upwork, by the time you let the cream rise to the top, the way you find out that something is bad is if a bunch of customers had a bad experience and said, this sucks. Like, that's not a good way to build a good customer experience, right? You've got to get ahead of it. And so we started gradually shifting from more of a, open, truly open bit of wild, wild west, and we'll sort it out after the fact, to no, we're going to set very clear standards. We're going to make those very visible and transparent, and we're going to hold all of our teachers accountable to delivering that standard that our users expect. And so we've migrated to that over time. And at one point, we actually deleted 16,000 classes off of the platform that no longer met what we expected for our community and what they wanted. So, I think that's a natural evolution that we got there, we got there over time. But, I think that was making that transition gradually has got us. Oh, and, the other part was we had evolved over time to be very strong in creative topics. And that wasn't something we necessarily set out to do. But when you look at any of these horizontal marketplaces, it's not actually one monolithic marketplace. It's a bunch of vertical marketplaces stuck together, right? And so we were really good in creative, but we had business, we had tech, we had personal wellness, we had all these other things. And we finally just took a look at what was working and what wasn't. And it was just abundantly clear that, sure, we could compete in business and tech, but we could be dominant in creative. And so we made the shift about 2 years ago to really focus in on creative as our core. And that's a tough thing to do. It's hard to walk away from business and tech, but it was so obvious it was the right thing, because I don't care who you are, I'll go head to head with you with creative content any day of the week. And we're going to win. We've got the best creative learning content on the planet. And because of that, we've got a vibrant community. We've got very happy teachers. They're very successful. So by focusing in, the quality got better, the brand got better, the product got better. We know exactly who we're talking to. We know what content they want, what they want to learn, who they want to learn from. We know how to talk to them. They talk to each other. So every aspect of our business, our product, our content got better when we narrowed our focus to that creative community. So that was another big shift for us, that it's hard to walk away. And you hear this, in every startup conversation, it's always what do you not do versus what do you do? It's really difficult in practice to walk away from things that could be a really big market, because you're going to be best in the world at this one thing.
Yeah, I think that's so true, that you guys need to figure out who is your core audience and be laser focused on serving them. I'm curious, at the beginning, how do you guys attract the first group of users? Is that paid ads or word of mouth? Why do you guys attract more creators? I personally love business content. I enjoy Udemy, LinkedIn Learning. Why do you guys leaning towards one section? How do you guys end up having all the great designers and freelancers on your platform?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sort of happened organically for us. Like at no point did we set out to get good in one category or the other. I mean, I have a suspicion that some of the success in creative content is it's just more visually appealing. Like, do you want to, given the format that we operate in, which is asynchronous, pre-recorded video, online, do you want to watch someone develop characters and animation and watch this character come off the page, or do you want to watch someone teach data science? I mean, you saw my accounting class. Like, there's only so much sizzle you can put into an accounting class. You go watch someone who's teaching one of our animation classes, or any of the drawing or graphic design. Like, it's just much more visually appealing. So I think that's probably what started to generate more traction and interest in that creative set. And then once you get, then you get the flywheel effects, right? There's always that chicken and egg dynamic. And I mean, I think that's the other thing is like, and that's a misconception with these platform models. You don't just launch the platform and stuff starts coming in, right? You've got to figure out that chicken and egg, and you've got to fake the chicken for a while. And so faking the chicken for us in the early days, we would go out and manually drag teachers in and convince them to teach. And again, quality control wasn't exceptional because we were just trying to get bodies in the door. And then as you start to get some traction, then you can sort of back off. Now we get 200 teachers, 1,000 classes every month without lifting a finger, right? So the supply side of the flywheel is humming. Now we can get more aggressive on our quality standards, on our content guidelines, raise that bar, get the quality up. So that's the journey we've been on over the last couple of years. So when you walk in now, you see really good content. But those early days of faking the chicken and just trying to drag teachers in the door, they would bring some students with them. That's kind of how we got that flywheel spinning. And then we were able to, sort of evolve over time. But once you get, we do really well in creative, but you start to see creative adjacencies, right? So for us to make the leap from graphic design to marketing, it's not that big of a leap. If you go from graphic design to data science or accounting, like my accounting class doesn't get a lot of traction, but the creative adjacencies will, because we've got that core in place.
I mean, your content marketing class is great. And then I saw the tree you draw. It's sort of like a cloud. I wasn't able to tell if it's a tree or a cloud, but anyway, great drawing.
I'll take it.
I'm curious about this. You mentioned great points at the beginning, focusing on just getting people in. And then when you get the ball rolling, you can be more selective, focusing on the quality. When it comes to getting customer, I think it's a different set of game. Besides having the great creators, some of the creators may be great teachers, but they probably won't really generate a lot of fans to come, right? Like I know big creators like Ali Abdul who teach editing on your platform. You have these top YouTubers who has millions of followers. But on the other hand, I don't know if there's any like smaller creators, they don't really have fans. And then when they come to your platform, do you guys like heavily promote them, or do you guys heavily promote those like the million follower guys?
Yeah, no, I mean, for us, once you're on the site, I don't care who you are, right? It's who produces the best content, because that's what our users want. So, I think so we review every single class that gets uploaded. If it is a good class, it'll get a staff pick no matter what your background is. And then those classes get promoted and get extra attention. A third of our top 100 teachers started as students. So they started as students, then they said, hey, I could try this. They taught their first class, they did well. They taught their second class, third class, fifth class, 10th class, and they build up we've got people who have 100,000 followers on Skillshare who grew up through the Skillshare teacher community. They weren't stars elsewhere. And so we put a lot of value in those homegrown Skillshare stars, because it just shows the power of what we can bring. I mean, a lot of teachers, they've got their own websites, they've got content elsewhere, they've set up, sort of other ways to sell content. But the fact that we bring so much traffic to their doorstep through their Skillshare classes, it creates a pretty powerful economic incentive. And that's, it's hard to do. Like you can go launch your own website and start teaching classes, but good luck getting people to come to it.
That's so true.
The fact that we can give people that signal of what's good and drive traffic to the door, that's a lot of our value to our teachers.
Absolutely. When it comes to picking the teachers, what are the criteria to approve or not approve someone? Would it be the quality of the content, or if someone's funny or not? Are they good at teaching? If they're able to get people engaged? What are the criteria that you guys use to evaluate the creators?
Yeah. So when we review each class, we do have a scoring rubric, and it's, the structure of the content, the audio quality, the video quality, the engagement level of the teacher. So we have sort of, but like the social following behind the teacher is not one of those criteria. Like, I don't care if nobody's ever heard of you. Like, if you teach good classes and content that we think our users want to see, great, let's go. We'll promote it. So I think we try to really focus on who is a good teacher, not who is a good self-promoter. You're running a podcast, you know how this goes. It's hard, so creating great content is one thing, getting people to show up and engage with it's another. And those are two different skills. So our job is to get people to come in. We want our teachers to produce great content. And of course, look, the Ali Abdals and, the big names who come teach on Skillshare, we look at those as both content and acquisition. So, we're looking at those Skillshare originals through a slightly different filter. But we don't want, like, Skillshare originals don't get any special treatment. If nobody's watching them, staff pick can get a lot more minutes. Our highest paid teachers are not our Skillshare original teachers. They're the homegrown stars who have built up a portfolio and a following.
Yeah, within Skillshare, I saw that there are places that students can upload their work and the teachers can rate it. Besides having those interactions, what are some actions you guys took to actively helping the teachers build the communities?
Yeah, a lot of the community engagement happens around those projects. So you take the class, you practice, whatever you're learning, you upload your project, you get feedback from the teacher, you get feedback from the students. So a lot of the community interaction is around that, but you can follow teachers. We've got discussion groups around various topics. We do live sessions, we do workshops. So we try to create lots of different ways for students to engage with teachers, with students to engage with each other. We have teacher forums where our teachers can work together on things. So we try to, that community aspect is really important to us. And I think it's hard to learn this stuff. My current project, my 11-year-old is super into knitting.
Oh my God.
So I am, I was on a plane home from spring break with my 11-year-old trying to figure out how to knit the world's ugliest scarf. But like, when I get done, I'm going to upload a picture of my scarf to the site, and people give me feedback and tell me what they like and what they don't like, and I think that community component, particularly for a creative focused platform, is really important. Like, there's sort of this moment of exposure where you share your work and you sit there and hope that people like it. That's the beauty of Skillshare. It's just a very positive, affirmative group of people who are happy to give feedback on what you're working on.
Wow, a free idea. You guys could also become some sort of like Etsy model. You can sell the scarf on the platform. But anyway. I don't think
anybody's buying my scarf.
Anyway, that's awesome. In Silicon Valley, cohort learning platforms are really popular. Many platforms or programs are trying to be the online version of Stanford. What's your thought on this trend? Do you think the community learning aspect is going to be dominating the future, or do you think the video education function is still going to be really mainstream in terms of building a successful online learning platform?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think it's a combination. Like, I look at our live sessions and I look at our workshops as kind of that's our version of that cohort-based learning. The way our workshops work, it's a series of classes around a particular topic with a couple projects scattered throughout. There's a start date, there's an end date, there's a moderator. You're going through it with a cohort of other students. You can share work and feedback as you go. So I think that sort of group learning approach, like, people like other people. It's fun. It makes it more interesting. I think a lot of our live sessions are kind of create alongside the teacher. And there's this moment at the end where they say, all right, everybody hold up your work. And, we get these great screenshots of, 75 people holding up the art that they did along with the teacher through that session. And it's just a very positive, rewarding moment, where everybody shows off what they've done. So I think there's a lot there, but, the advantage of the asynchronous pre-recorded video, I can learn how to build my crappy scarf on the plane. Like, I can do it whenever I want. Like, so I think there's a mix of, people like other people, and it's fun to do it with a crowd, and there's a certain attraction to that, but we're all busy. We all got a bazillion things going, schedules are hard, and having the flexibility to just sit down and take a class on a rainy day when you feel like it, or to do it on a plane instead of checking your email, like, that's I think a very valuable and important flexibility.
For sure, cohort learning can cost thousands of dollars compared to if you purchase Skillshare, only $99 with a coupon. Although there's a huge trend towards online group learning, it's hard to make sure the quality of the cohort are the same quality when it scales.
We are solving a different problem for a different user, and 99 bucks a year, we deliver a truckload of value. I mean, you've got 33,000 classes that you can take for $99 a year. There are people who would pay $99 for one class of ours. So I think we try to pack a lot of value into what we offer. But yeah, to your point, there's $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 price points that are solving a different problem for a different user.
For sure. What if Masterclass starts compete? I know that they're targeting a different audience. Some people say it's kind of a Netflix for documentary situation now, but what if they decided to include more younger and trending influencers to teach? How do you compete in that case?
Yeah, I think this is where, we come back to, like, we're going to be best in the world at creative. And so in some cases that'll overlap, maybe some culinary topics, maybe they have some artists. I mean, Roxane Gay, New York Times writer, she's got classes on Skillshare. She now has a masterclass. Like, that's great. I'm good with that. So you can go pay, 3 times as much on masterclass, or you can come watch it on Skillshare. Your choice. So, I think we will certainly overlap in some areas, but I don't really think of us as competitive. I think, our users are coming to us because they want to learn how to do something and produce something and actually put it to work. And there are certainly classes on Masterclass that you can do that. I think the culinary classes in particular, but a lot of their classes, as you mentioned, it feels more like a documentary behind the music. Like, I'm going to watch the Serena Williams class because I just love Serena Williams. I think she's unbelievable at what she does. And, I want to watch Steph Curry break down a defense, like, because he's just unbelievable at what he does. Like, it's not going to make me a better basketball player. I can watch Steph Curry all day long. It's not going to help me. Whereas I think our pedagogy and our focus is much more around, like, I'm producing a scarf, like, it may not be a good scarf, but I'm making a scarf. So I think it's a slightly different focus and angle, and given our creative expertise, I think we're kind of adjacent, but not necessarily directly competitive with Masterclass.
For sure. What about Udemy and Coursera? I feel like Coursera and Udemy are probably more businessy.
Yeah, I mean, Coursera, it's sort of the university degree online / micro degree. Udemy certainly has creative content, but that's not their focus. They're more business and tech focused, more enterprise focused. We're more consumer focused. So I think we probably were more competitive with them 4 years ago than we are today. I think again, we're just serving a different community with a different set of content. So I think that's part of what drove our decision to really focus in on creative is, there just aren't that many direct competitors out there, and certainly not many that can hang with us.
Yeah, this is the first time I'm trying to understand Skillshare's business side from the operational perspective than the user perspective. You started working at Skillshare as a COO. Now you're the CEO. How do you quickly figure out the core user you should focus on? Would it be researching the data or chatting with all employees and users? Since your core audience seems like 28 years old designers, how do you make sure you understand the product and services you guys offer from their perspective?
I mean, it's interesting. I think one of the reasons I was slow to come to the conclusion that we needed to focus on creative is, it didn't look like me. So it was hard for me to relate to, like, if it's an enterprise sale around business and tech, like, okay, yeah, like that for me is comfortable. And, but then the more I looked at where the business was going and where we were successful, people weren't engaging in the business and tech content the way they were in creative. And so the numbers were just blatantly obvious that we were much more effective and delivered a lot more value to the users who were interested in creative content. And yeah, we had enough to convert data science and accounting and, crypto, but we could really, really blow the socks off of people looking for creative content community. So, it took me, I was a little slow to get there. But once we sort of really looked at where we were strongest, it was pretty obvious. So then how do I get up to speed on, all right, what do these users really want, need, and think about? And I spent a lot of time talking to teachers and students. I have our operations team set up one-on-one meetings every week, and I try to talk to one teacher and one student every week. And I've got a set of questions I walk through. How'd you hear about us? What's your background? What are you trying to get from it? What do you like? What's working? What's not working? And I'll pepper them with some product ideas, and just hearing them talk about the platform, talk about the content, talk about the community. I can look at survey data all day long. It's just not the same as actually hearing people talk about it. And when do their eyes light up, and when do they get energetic, and when do they start to fall asleep? And it's like hearing and seeing how they react to different things as we talk about the business is really it's super useful for me, as I'm not a 28-year-old freelance designer. So I've got to see it and hear it and how they think about it to really understand it.
Yeah. What's your day-to-day like now? I think it's such a great idea to talk to the teacher, talk to the audience, to really understand them. I had the former co-CEO of Chipotle on the show. I remember he had one-on-ones with 20K employees. I feel like it can help you to understand the problem a lot better than sitting in the office coming up with strategies. I appreciate that you guys really taking the time to understand the audience.
Well, and it's also using the product. I mean, I'm taking drawing lessons, I'm doing a mandala and Procreate, I'm learning to knit, just going through it. You got to put it to work and get in there and rattle around and to really understand it. So yeah, I think it's a big part.
When you created your own course, what's your inspiration? I actually found the content really interesting. I remember the John Deere example, the first round example in the content marketing course. When you're a creator for your own course, what's your thought process like putting together the class, and what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah. So that was, that class I produced, I think, in my first 3-6 months. And I did that one all by myself, which is why the production quality isn't very good. You look at that versus my Skillshare original on the accounting class, that was produced by our originals team. And you can tell the production quality difference between the two. But it's, again, I've spent time as a student. I wanted to spend time as a teacher. I wanted to go through it start to finish on my own, do it myself. What was hard, what was easy. And, so I got to see firsthand what that teacher experience was like. And I think now, again, particularly given the creative focus, I'm not teaching many classes on my own anymore. But I think that content marketing class I was coming at it visually, which was content marketing focused. It was sort of a good relevant topic given our creative and sort of marketing adjacencies. So it was a nice place for me to start, and it was sort of a seminar and session that I actually taught as part of our content marketing when I was at Visually. So it felt like an easily adaptable content and format, but it's hard, and I think they're just little tips and tricks now that I've been here for a while that it's always been on my list to go back and reshoot that class and do it the right way. Because, the talking over slides is just not effective. And, as we grade out our classes, that class does not have a very high grade. So, if you have any questions of whether or not the content moderation team plays favorites, they do not. So my class is not very highly rated.
I actually really like it. I feel like maybe because of it's more interesting than accounting. Okay, no offense, but I feel like it's more interesting than accounting. I feel really engaged. And I think the example you used, as I remember, you used Farmer Magazine by John Deere. I don't remember what exactly the magazine was called. I just remember it's a farmer magazine. I feel like those things really speak to me. I didn't even realize it was PowerPoint until you just said it. I did not see your face in that video, but
that's, if I wanted a higher grade, it would be a combination of talking head, better visuals, better audio. The audio is not great. So I think this is kind of an interesting component of these open platforms is I actually, yes, I'm biased. I think the content is really good. The production value is not very good. And so, when I think people look at Skillshare, you find some of these classes where the content is actually really good. And okay, maybe the audio is a little hazy, or the video is not quite right, or the lighting's not very good. But one of the things we hear from students is they actually like the fact that it's not overproduced. And they like the fact that teachers come at it from different angles, and it's not all a cookie cutter approach. And you look at some of the other companies like Masterclass, who they produce all of their own content. It is the same look, it is the same feel, and it's very good, but you don't get a variety of angles on things, and when our teachers, I think a lot of our teachers look what we do for the originals and they copy a lot of that style, but a lot of teachers, they're trying their own things, they're doing new stuff, and we learn from that. We see what's working for them. And that's a really healthy dynamic, to have people trying different formats and different approaches and different lighting and transitions and music and all of these things. Like, teachers can innovate in how they want to lay out the information that they're trying to deliver, and I think that's a big advantage of the open platform.
Absolutely. I actually really like the authenticness of some of the courses on there. And I don't like it when it's like shooting by the same background, or it's like too overly well produced that I can never see anyone drop a paper or fail on the first try or something. I feel like it's more authentic, that you could just teach on the go than too scripted. If you're teaching a career development course on Skillshare, what would you teach? What would be in your core concepts?
Man, I think the career development, I think the most common mistake I see people make is they are too focused on title and comp. And, I look at I think almost every job transition I've ever made, I took a pay cut and a title cut. I think every single one, which may just make me a terrible negotiator. And it drives my wife crazy. But, I went from VP at a colo to director at Upwork. I worked my way up to VP. I was on the exec team. Now, I did go from there. I was CEO of Visually, but then I went from the CEO of Visually to the COO of Skillshare, and I took a pay cut. And now I'm a CEO. So I got some good feedback very early. I was interviewing, so I know Lori Goler, the head of people ops at Facebook. She's unbelievable. And I actually worked with her husband at Odesk Upwork. I was talking to her when I was thinking about making a move, and she made the analogy was like, every job is like getting on a train, and you got to think long and hard about where that train is going to drop you off. And people worried about what seat they are in on the train as opposed to where's the train going. And if you're in the front premier seat of a train that drops you off at 3:30 a.m. in Skokie, Illinois, there's not a whole lot of places to go from there, So, but if you're in the back seat of a train to Grand Central Station, there's a lot of places you can go from there. And the other analogy that Gary Swart at Odesk, and when I didn't want to take a title cut, his pitch to me, and I remember this very clearly because I've now delivered it to a lot of other people, is get on the bus. It doesn't matter what seat you're in. If you get on the right bus, everything will take care of itself. You can switch seats once you get on the bus, but get on the bus. And if you're in the best seat on a shitty bus, it doesn't help you at all. And he's like, okay, so you're a VP at a small company that's not really growing. Is that going to get you where you want to go? Or do you want to come be a director on this bus it's actually a rocket ship? And he was dead on. Those 5 years at Odesk Upwork were life-changing for me. And so, had I been hung up on, if I'd let the ego of title and comp get in the way, I never would have taken that job, and I probably wouldn't be sitting where I am right now. So, I just hear a lot of people say, oh, well, I want to be a director, or I want to be a VP. It's like, well, you can go get a VP job at a small, crappy company. That's easy. Anybody can do that. But I mean, look at what it means to be a director at Google or Facebook. They manage more budget, more people than I do as CEO of Skillshare. So, titles and comp are a tricky thing. And I think people just focus on that too heavily, too early, rather than thinking about what are you learning, who are you working for, where's this company going, and what are you going to walk away from What are you going to have in your hand when you walk away from that job?
That's so deep. How do you pick a good boss?
Yeah.
What characteristic did you see in like Upwork or now in Skillshare when you
Yeah. I mean,
decided to go
it's,
there?
picking companies is hard. And there's a reason why the VC model, you pick 10 and one of them might work, right?
Mhm.
That's how they make their money. It's not all 10. So like picking stocks and picking companies is hard. I think picking people is a little easier. Like, who are you reporting to? Like, what can you learn from them? And, when I talked to Gary, it was clear I could learn a lot from Gary.
Mhm.
When I went to Visually, it's my first CEO job. It was obvious I could learn a ton. So like as I think about my career, like when I went to work for JP Morgan, Kevin Kelty, my first boss, like I got so lucky because I didn't know what I was looking for. I just swerved into it.
Mhm.
Like he gave me so many opportunities to learn and develop and coach and so I think pick your boss first. That's the first sign of a good boss. If a lot of other good people are on that bus, it's probably a pretty good bus.
Mhm.
So who picking companies is hard, but who are you working for? Who are you working with? Like who are the people you're surrounding yourself with in that company? And that's a generally pretty good indicator of the quality of the bus.
Yeah, this remind me of actually, you may know her. Jelly Bisharat was on my podcast in episode 7. I think she was working for Upwork / Odesk. She was leading marketing. She was talking about pick good people to work with.
Jaleigh and I work together at Odesk. Jaleigh is actually on Skillshare's board now.
Oh, wow.
And so and I remember when we hired Jaleigh and thinking like, I'm lucky to still be in the room, because Jaleigh was 10 notches and still is, over me. And like, when she walked in the room, it was like, wow, that's what it's supposed to look like. She's unbelievable. And, as the company grew and as the company evolved, like, I think that's another interesting thing. Like people get hung up on moving up the ladder, but like, as the company is growing and evolving, sometimes just hanging on to the seat you're in is a promotion.
Yeah.
And and it's hard. And I mean, as Odesk grew, like I was hanging on by my fingernails to stay in the room with Jaleigh and Gary and Greg Stanger, who is our CFO. And he was on the board of Netflix and on the board of Kayak, and he's our CFO, and I'm in the same room as that guy. Like, so now he's at Iconic. Like, so having Jaleigh and Stefan, who became the CEO, and Greg, like, who's now a partner at Iconic, like, I think back to the fact that, I was even remotely close to hanging into that room. That was a promotion. Like it didn't feel like it at the time, but it was. So I think that's a really important lesson.
For sure. What were something you've learned from Upwork that you took to lead Visually, which was a business that's not originally doing great? After you joined them, you helped the company got acquired. What did those two experiences taught you that you took to successfully run Skillshare?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton. And I mean, I really look at those 5 years at Odesk Upwork. I mean, I came in as the head of operations. I was running trust and safety, customer service. The enterprise business kind of sprung out of customer service. We had these enterprise customers who were like, how the hell do I use this thing? And I was like, I'll take them. And we sort of evolved that to it was over $100 million top line business when I left. And it started with one customer. So I ended up picking up a lot of things, international BD. So I think I ended up in kind of a catch-all role where, if it didn't fall neat, I was the executive storm drain. If it didn't fall neatly in product or engineering or marketing or something else, like I ended up with it, and it was great. I loved it. So I think I got to see lots of different aspects of the business, and I got to watch Jaleigh do marketing. I got to watch Greg Stanger be a CFO. I got to watch Brian Levy be a GC. I got to watch Stefan do engineering and products. So like I got to watch some unbelievable people do their thing, so that when I got to Visually, I at least had a pretty good sense of what it was supposed to look like when it was done well. I couldn't do it myself necessarily, but at least I knew what it was supposed to look like. And so, I think that just very well-rounded background helped me helped me in my first CEO role. I mean, visually was interesting because I was coming in and it was not a great situation. I was coming in to replace a founding CEO and the company was not doing well, not a lot of money and not a lot of time. And I think the sort of being thrown into the fire, there just wasn't a lot of time for BS. Like we didn't have a whole lot of choices and we had to move quick and decisively. And so I had to strip a lot of the BS out of the way and get down to it. And, and I think it definitely played to my strengths. My first couple of weeks were probably not the most inspirational, but like I made it crystal clear what we needed to get done and by when, and we set about getting it done. And there were certainly people who it was visually was no longer the right place for them. I was not the right leader for them, and they were not on board with where we wanted to go with the business, and that was okay. But I think the big lesson learned there is when the house is on fire, you need people who grab a bucket, or at least at a minimum get the hell out of the way, because the worst type are the people who just stand there and yell fire. Because now you're just creating noise and distraction, and those people you got to clear out quickly. So I think we got to the core group that wanted to help put out the fire, and we safely landed the plane. But it wasn't always pretty.
Sounds like you are observing at Upwork and implementing what you have learned at Visually. One fun fact I found was you mentioned you traveled to India in the past. You got worshipped by people from the country because many people got dropped from Upwork. You talked about international expansion for Skillshare. How did it go? Tell us more about how will it look like for Skillshare and your career in the future internationally.
Yeah, running the international function at Odesk was probably the most fun I've ever had. Because I would either, I was sort of Gary's stunt double, like whatever, all the high profile and or convenient PR stuff Gary would do, and I got everything else. So, he got Harvard Business School case study, and I got tech conference in Bangladesh. But it was great. I got to go meet all of these users, and both on the client and on the freelancer side. And I think the international trips to the freelancer countries like India and Philippines and Bangladesh and Ukraine and Russia, I got to see firsthand the social impact of what we were doing. And I mean, I signed autographs. Like they had to give me a security detail because I couldn't move around the conference. Like, because people were so personally impacted by this platform and what Odesk Upwork was doing for them. It was hard to come back and tell the team and really describe how visceral their reaction was. Mm-hmm. And that's just something that you just don't find every day. And mm-hmm. It's, finding a really good business is hard. Finding a really good business that has a clear and obvious social impact is even harder. And that was something that when I was looking, after we sold Visually and I was trying to figure out what was next, when I saw Skillshare, like it just clicked. I felt like I was walking back into Odesk in 2009 because unbelievable business model, super inspirational mission and vision, like very 15% of our NPS comments use the word love. Like people just love Skillshare. They love what we do. They're super passionate about it. And that is a huge advantage for us in recruiting, in marketing, in brand. Like that is, having that social impact is really important to people now. And that, it helps us hire unbelievable talent. But, when I think about the international opportunity for Skillshare, we're half of all of our active users are now outside of the US. More than 60% of all new users coming in the door are outside the US. When we still have a long way to go in localizing content, local payment methods, local pricing optimization, local teachers, like all of these things to make that international user experience better. We still got a lot of work to do. So the fact that we've had this much traction this early with this little investment in international, they're basically coming into an English-focused platform and finding what they want. God forbid we actually develop this to help an international user base. Like we're going to see our growth accelerate that much more. So it has been a long haul. We have made a ton of progress. We have a really sizable international user base, but I think that is going to be our hands down our number one growth lever for the years to come, and that's something that obviously we're really excited about.
Yeah, I think that just sounds really exciting. Especially, I come from international background, so we're at the 1 minute fire round session. So, yeah. Question one: what's your favorite book?
Prayer for Owen Meany, John Irving. Prayer for Owen Meany.
Who made the biggest impact in your career?
Oh man, I mean, it feels cliched, but probably my dad, just because I've had great bosses along the way, but he was a consistent thread.
Who would you invite to your dinner party?
Oh man, Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters.
Where can we find you outside of work?
Outside, surfing, fishing, golfing, running, biking, something outside.
Oh, I thought it was going to be knitting or guitar playing and drawing.
That's what I do when I can't go do those things.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Matt, for coming on to the show today.
It was fun.
All right, that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Smart Venture Podcast. If you like it, please leave us a quick review and hit subscribe so you don't miss any tips from the experts. If you want to receive our updates, please leave your email at smartventurepod.com. If you want to connect with me, all my socials are at Grace Gong GG. Beside LinkedIn, it's just Grace Gong. I'd love to connect with you and let me know your thought about the show. Now you can also listen to Smart Venture Podcast on YouTube. Go to smartventurepod.com, click the YouTube link on the top banner. Don't forget to hit subscribe and smash the like button. See you next time.